welcome people of the World Wide Web. So it is the weekend, it is another movie review, and as the title would show, this is the Lord of the Rings, the Battle of Rohirrim. So this comes from legendary director Kenji Kamemoto. Obviously does a lot of anime side of things, so I know people to the worldwide won't know. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes long. There are no after credit scenes. There's kind of a little bit at the end. And it is a combination of basically the company who produced Lord of the Rings and the Warner Brothers animated studios. So anybody who does or doesn't know, this is set 200 years before the Lord of the Rings story. It is set after the TV series, The Rings of Power. It is essentially around the city of Rohan. The king, played by Brian Cox Helm, he rules the kingdom. There are certain factions who don't disagree with him, and it is kind of the people want to take the hand of his daughter. He wants to marry his daughter to a lord in Gondor, the main the main place, obviously within Middle Earth. And due to an altercation, there becomes a battle. The young son of one of the neighbouring or rebel kind of, or part of the, kind of one of the heads of this kind of continuation in village, basically he gets killed by the king, and his son wants to take vengeance, gets up this massive army, and then there's a big battle leading to Hera, the main kind of heroine on this, having to kind of go against him. That's the story in a nutshell. I did enjoy it. For me, I will get more into that in there. So we'll put the spoiler warning up, and then we shall go into it. So yes, so this movie starts. We have the world of Rohan. It is close to Gondor. Obviously, they kind of have a rivalry. Rohan is kind of the king is Helm, and it is kind of his family. He has his two younger sons, Harith and Hannah, and then Hera, who is the daughter. This story is more situated around her. You first have her meeting the Eagles going back, and then you kind of have this meeting. The king has decided to call his factions together, and one of these factions, unfortunately, he wants his son Wolf, who was a childhood friend of Hera, to marry him. And Helm is basically against that. He says, look, my daughter is betrothed to someone in Gondor, and that is the way it's going to be. But you're put in your place, and they want to fight. They go out, they fight. The king kills him with one punch. His son Wolf is then left devastated and plots basically vengeance on him. He then disappears for a period, and then you have kind of a little bit of time goes on. Obviously, as Hera goes out, she is then escorted, because they are starting to hear like weird creatures and stuff are coming into their kind of native lands, and they don't know why. They find the skeleton of a tamer, and then this is when they find a wild elephant. You kind of get to see a little bit of that in the trailer. Hera manages to subdue the elephant. Again, you kind of see it with this kind of swan creature. During this, she then gets kidnapped, and then she is taken to what is essentially the evil tower where Sauron's eye is situated. Obviously, we don't know this as of yet. This is where Wolf is encamped, and he is kind of taken on the mantle of kind of the forest and folk people, and all these slaves, not slaves, all these like kind of thieves and stuff like that. And that is who he's building this massive army to basically get vengeance for his dad's death. During this, Hera's servant Erwin, she manages to free him with the cousin, who was there with him at first before she got kidnapped. And when they take back, the king takes offence to that, and basically the cousin is banded away, because obviously Helm feels that she was put in danger, and he shouldn't have allowed that. This is when another faction within Helm's realm decides to join with them and says, look, there's an army coming, we will help you. This massive battle then ensues, but what turns out, the faction who was going to be helping Helm is actually a traitor. He basically doesn't turn up. His factions then go and try to raid the village. Hera foresees this and manages to get most of them out. Unfortunately, she kills the head of this faction. During this battle, as the dad, Helm, and the two sons come back, the eldest son is shot with an arrow and killed, and the youngest son is then taken captured. As they are trying to retreat, what troops are left, they then recede to a basically giant wall in a mountain of where like kind of servants and stuff and not treasure, you would assume treasures but not, and this is where the kind of the final battle takes place. The king obviously is mortally wounded in this battle but is then recovered. The youngest son is taken out as a hostage, and then his throat is slit by a wolf because he wants vengeance, and then the list kind of all leads them to Hera kind of becoming the heir of her kingdom, fighting off against Wolf, and basically Hera's final battle declaiming that where they are is she will rename it Helm's Deep after her dad and her bloodline. Obviously that's, we know obviously this was in the Two Towers from Lord of the Rings, so that's where it gets its name from. She wins out, Wolf is killed, and then she is kind of the saviour. But, and I say this is a kind of story that isn't supposedly spoke about because the women warriors were not seen as then the ends. You have the only person who kind of returns is Miranda Otto, Eowyn from the Lord of the Rings movies. She is the narrator of this movie, which I think is quite fitting. I think her character is quite close to the heroine in this one. The only other two actors that are in it is Merry and Pippin, so Billy Boyd and can't remember the other actor's name now. They play the two goblins that you meet part of the way through who are collecting rings, and obviously this is to highlight that this is linked to the Lord of the Rings movie. What did I think of this movie? I've given it 6.7 out of 10. Now for me, this is the best animated thing that Warner Brothers have produced in such a long time. I'm a big fan of the DC stuff, but the DC stuff early on, like early 2000s, 2010s and stuff like this, was really good. The past stuff and that 3-part trilogy that they ended the DC series was absolutely abysmal in my eyes. I'm not even looking to pick it up. I say if it's very, very cheap, I may do, but it just seemed to have lacked something, and it seems to be getting worse and worse over time. Now this, obviously they brought in a legendary anime director. Eden of the East is one of the things that I've watched, and he has a specific style, and this is, I say, this is beautiful. The way people are animated is really, really nice. The CG background actually blends in, and it feels so much like the world of Lord of the Rings. And I'm not the biggest fan of merging these two elements. I am a classic fan of the painted backgrounds, but I think this works for this world, and stuff like this. I enjoyed the story. What it was, I like the fact they linked to stuff at the very end. They mentioned Saruman and Gandalf and stuff like that, and having the tower and Helm's Deep and stuff, and it was all paying tribute to it. You had the eagles, you had a lot of elements that were there, so I did enjoy it. What for me, I've seen unfortunately reviews and stuff thrown on my feeds and stuff before I saw this, and I know a lot of people have it being a heroine, and the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbits have always been a collective of characters. It's even the Rings of Power, there's all these characters all over the place. This is very much centered on one person, this heroine. To me, I don't mind it. It felt like it fit it in there with Miranda Otto narrating it, being heroine. She is kind of a futuristic version of Hera in this movie. And yeah, it fits perfectly into the world for me. I say I can't, there was a little bit, the animation and some of the voices very early on felt a little bit off. I don't know if that's sync, how they're drawn or something. There was one or two things that didn't. When there's a few characters and stuff are talking, I didn't feel that worked quite well. As I say, overall it was enjoyable. I say the story being so divine to Helm's Deep, I understand why they did it there in the battle and something, but because it takes different avenues and stuff of this one character, I can get it's a very different creature to what the Lord of the Rings franchise has been. So they've brought these 6 films up at a massive and all these characters, and then you go, right, we'll take a length of one of these, but we've only had it basically about a family that more or less all get killed off except for Hera, and then obviously she leaves because she leaves it to kind of be a traveller warrior anyway. That's how it is. But I really enjoyed it. You know, I'm glad to see that the movies at the end of this year are starting to pick up, and I'm starting to enjoy them more. And hopefully, I say this whole lull of 2024 is starting to get over itself, and it will go bigger and better into 2025. But that is my review of Lord of the Rings: The War of Rohan. Have you seen the movie? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. I've been Sigma Screen Time, and I shall see you in the next one.